The Trial of the Century, 10 Most Scandalous and Shocking Facts. Throughout history, certain court cases have gripped the world with their drama, intrigue, and controversy, earning the title of the Trial of the Century. These trials involve high-profile figures, shocking crimes, and sensational revelations, captivating audiences across the globe. From the gilded halls of power to the gritty streets of crime, here are 10 of the most scandalous and shocking facts from these notorious trials. Number 1. The case of Leopold and Lobe, thrill killers of the Jazz Age. In 1924, two wealthy Chicago University students, Nathan Leopold and Richard Lobe, shocked the nation by committing a cold-blooded murder. They kidnapped and killed 14-year-old Bobby Franks, a distant cousin of Lobe, to prove their intellectual superiority and demonstrate they could execute the perfect crime. Both came from affluent families. Leopold was a prodigy who spoke 9 languages and was set to enter Harvard Law School, while Lobe, the youngest graduate from the University of Michigan at 17, had a fascination with crime novels. The pair meticulously planned the crime for months, but a pair of eyeglasses found near Bobby's body led the police to Leopold. The trial was unprecedented in its use of psychological defense. Clarence Darrow, their defense attorney, argued for 12 hours against the death penalty, presenting them as products of their own affluence and blaming their actions on an inherent psychological condition, an offense inherent in his organism. His plea swayed Judge John Caverly, who sentenced them to life imprisonment plus 99 years rather than execution, a decision that triggered public outrage. The trial questioned the ethics of capital punishment and brought new attention to psychological explanations of crime. Number 2. The Lindberg Baby Kidnapping, America's first crime of the century. On the night of March 1, 1932, Charles Lindbergh, famed aviator, and his wife Mauro Lindbergh, faced a parent's worst nightmare when their 20-month-old son, Charles Jr., was kidnapped from their New Jersey home. The case quickly gained the title The Crime of the Century, partly due to Lindbergh's fame and the $50,000 ransom left at the scene. Despite paying the ransom, the boy was found dead weeks later, just a few miles from the Lindbergh estate. The case captivated the world, with President Herbert Hoover and the FBI directly involved. Bruno Richard Hauptmann, a German immigrant carpenter, was arrested after marked ransom bills were found in his possession. During his trial in 1935, dubbed the Trial of the Century, Hauptmann insisted on his innocence, famously stating, "I have no fear of death, I am innocent of this crime." Despite public sympathy and a lack of direct evidence, he was convicted and executed in 1936. To this day, debates continue about whether Hauptmann was the true kidnapper or a scapegoat, and many conspiracy theories still surround the case. Number 3. The OJ Simpson Trial, If the Glove Don't Fit, You Must Acquit. On June 12, 1994, O.J. Simpson, a former NFL star turned actor, was charged with the murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman, after their bodies were found outside Nicole's Brentwood, Los Angeles home. The televised police chase of Simpson's white Ford Bronco became a media sensation, and his subsequent trial in 1995 captivated the nation. Simpson's defense team, famously known as the Dream Team, included attorneys Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, and F. Lee Bailey, who skillfully challenged the prosecution's evidence. The trial reached a climax when Simpson tried on the bloody gloves found at the crime scene, and they appeared not to fit. Cochran coined the famous phrase, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," creating doubt among jurors. On October 3, 1995, Simpson was acquitted, a verdict that starkly divided America along racial lines and left many questioning the role of race, celebrity, and the justice system. Number 4. The Trial of the Rosenbergs Spies Among Us. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were arrested in 1950 at the height of the Red Scare and charged with conspiracy to commit espionage. Accused of passing secrets about the atomic bomb to the Soviet Union, the Rosenbergs trial in 1951 was marked by a pervasive fear of communism. The government's case relied heavily on the testimonies of Ethel's brother, David Greenglass, and his wife, who alleged that Julius was the ringleader of a spy network. Despite the lack of concrete evidence directly implicating Ethel, both were found guilty and sentenced to death. The Rosenbergs were executed on June 19, 1953, at Sing Sing Prison in New York, leaving behind 2 young sons. In their final letter, Ethel wrote to their attorney, the facts of this case have shown that our execution is a legal murder, an unjust conclusion to a grotesque miscarriage of justice. The case remains controversial, with many believing that Ethel was falsely implicated, serving as a scapegoat amid Cold War paranoia. Number 5. The Nuremberg Trials, judging the Nazis. Following the defeat of Nazi Germany, the Allies convened the Nuremberg Trials in 1945-46 to bring Nazi war criminals to justice. 24 high-ranking Nazis, including Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, and Joachim von Ribbentrop, faced charges of crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide. The trials marked the first time such an international tribunal had been convened, setting the foundation for international criminal law. The prosecution presented extensive evidence, including 3,000 tons of documents and horrific footage from concentration camps. Göring remained defiant until the end, declaring, "We will go down in history as the greatest statesman of all time." He was sentenced to death but evaded execution by committing suicide with cyanide. The trials were groundbreaking, revealing the extent of Nazi atrocities and setting a precedent for future human rights violations to be judged under international law. Number 6. The Manson Family Murders, Cult Killings in Hollywood. On the nights of August 8 to 9, 1969, Charles Manson's family cult members carried out the brutal murders of actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant, and 6 others in Los Angeles, intending to incite an apocalyptic race war they called Helter Skelter. The shocking nature of the crimes and Manson's hypnotic influence over his followers fascinated the public. During the trial, Manson carved an X into his forehead, later turning it into a swastika, symbolizing his rejection of societal norms. Prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi exposed Manson's chilling manipulations, declaring, "These people were not innocent," referring to the cult members. Manson and several followers were sentenced to death in 1971, but their sentences were later commuted to life imprisonment following the temporary abolition of the death penalty in California in 1972. The trial marked a sinister end to the 1960s counterculture movement and remains a chilling example of cult influence. Number 7. The Scopes Monkey Trial, Evolution versus Creationism. In 1925, the small town of Dayton, Tennessee, became the center of a national controversy over the teaching of evolution in schools. High school teacher John T. Scopes was charged with violating the Butler Act, which prohibited teaching evolution in public schools. The trial featured 2 of the most renowned attorneys of the time, Clarence Darrow for the defense and William Jennings Bryan for the prosecution. Darrow's cross-examination of Bryan became the trial's highlight, where he attempted to undermine the literal interpretation of the Bible. Despite the guilty verdict against Scopes, which carried a $100 fine, the trial, broadcast live on radio, symbolized a profound cultural conflict between science and religion in America. Though the conviction was overturned on a technicality, the trial catalyzed a national debate over educational freedom and the separation of church and state. Number 8. The Trial of Michael Jackson, the King of Pop on the stand. In 2005, Michael Jackson faced charges of child molestation, abduction, and false imprisonment, stemming from accusations by a 13-year-old boy. The trial was a media circus, with over 1,000 journalists reporting. The prosecution portrayed Jackson as a manipulative predator, while the defense, led by Thomas Mesereau, described Jackson as the victim of extortion. The trial was marked by strange events, including Jackson arriving late to court in pajamas. Judge Rodney Melville frequently expressed frustration at the media frenzy, remarking, "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen." Jackson was acquitted on all counts after 4 months of testimony, but his career and reputation suffered irreparable damage. The trial remains a polarizing topic, with public opinion deeply divided over Jackson's innocence or guilt. Number 9. The Harry K. Thaw Scandal, Murder in the Gilded Age. On June 25, 1906, millionaire Harry K. Thaw shot and killed Stanford White, a prominent architect, at Madison Square Garden, New York, in front of a crowd of witnesses. Thaw, known for his erratic behavior and obsession with his young wife Evelyn Nesbit, who had been seduced by White, claimed he was avenging her honor. The trial, filled with sensational revelations, was dubbed the trial of the century. Nesbitt's testimony describing her seduction by White was graphic, stating, "He ruined me," making the trial a tabloid sensation. Thaw's defense argued temporary insanity, driven by dementia americana, or the wrath of a husband defending his wife's virtue. Initially deadlocked, a second jury found him not guilty by reason of insanity. Thaw was confined to a mental institution but was released in 1915. The case laid bare the dark underbelly of high society in the early 20th century. Number 10. The impeachment of Bill Clinton, sex, lies, and the Oval Office. In 1998, President Bill Clinton became the second U.S. president to face impeachment, stemming from a sexual harassment lawsuit filed by Paula Jones and an extramarital affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. Clinton's repeated denials, including his infamous statement, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky," were contradicted by evidence, leading to charges of perjury and obstruction of justice. The trial in the Senate captivated the nation and revealed deep partisan divisions. While Clinton was acquitted by the Senate, his presidency was overshadowed by the scandal, which highlighted the intense scrutiny of public figures' private lives and the polarized nature of American politics. Clinton later admitted to a physical relationship that was not appropriate, but the incident left lasting scars on his political legacy.